I am back. What's going on, guys and girls? It's GhostRobo. Bet you haven't heard that name in a long time, but I have been jonesing for this resurrection.
And it confirms the worst. Somehow Palpatine returned.
Man, oh man, it feels good to be here in the flesh, or for you, in the ear. Hi. But I had to bring you a super in-depth, crazy breakdown and new details, information, and insight on Star Wars Outlaws because I'm super hyped for this game, especially given my recent Star Wars renaissance, which I will talk about in a different video. But here, this is all about bringing you all the links to the past trailers, all the details, the Easter eggs, and all the insight I can about how this game is going to play, what this game is going to be like, some concerns I have, and ultimately the hope I have for the world of Star Wars Outlaws. So let's dive right in. Canto Bight. First shot we see, this is the planet, the casino planet, the planet featured in the sequel trilogy, and a great place for our main plot line to take shape. This story trailer is really awesome because it gives us details on all the different factions at play, all the different characters, and our main villain, Sliro. Now, Sliro has a name that you really can't forget, and it's pretty darn fun to say. Sliro is the main dude. Why the heck is his name Sliro? Very funny, but he is the leader of a crime syndicate family that has been featured in the Star Wars universe, but never really gotten the shine, and they will get the shine in today's trailer and definitely in this game. But Sliro is holding counsel with all sorts of crime factions. The Pike family, who we know from the Book of Boba Fett TV show, and I love them because they be slinging spice. And as we know, spice is a drug from Dune and Star Wars, which I think is a cool linkage because Dune 2 is probably my favorite movie of the last 5 years. I really like it, and I really like that the Pikes are here. I think they're pretty cool. I also like the Crimson Dawn, who were established by Darth Maul. Be interesting to see how deep they go into that lore. I think they are pretty freaking fun, and I do think that it potentially could have some really awesome impact on just how we see Star Wars in games. I think that's one of the coolest things of Ubisoft and Massive taking over the tall task of bringing a Star Wars game to our consoles, is they get to put their own spin on it. And that's going to have some impact, both good and bad, as we'll see as we progress. So we've also got the Hutts, who I'm freaking excited about in this trailer and in this game, because this is not the, random Hutt era. This is not the Council of Hutts era. This is the Jabba the Hutt era, and we're going to get to see Jabba, his palace, Bib Fortuna, and a bunch of familiar faces, as well as just an era that I think is awesome. Star Wars Outlaws takes place between episode 5 and 6. That's between Empire and Return of the Jedi. So we know what's going on at this time in the world. It's not a random period. It's not a random time. It's not a random set of characters, although I do think this game is benefiting extensively from being diverse and distinct in not just being Tatooine, Hoth, Bespin, all the typical planets. We're going to get a good mix of old planets and new, lesser explored planets here. But we do have Sliro, and his faction is the Zarek Besh. Now, we don't know much about the Zarek Besh, and you probably have never heard of them unless you read this comic book where they were first sort of detailed and described. The comic book was Crimson Reign. It was the 5th and final issue, and this is canon. But basically, the way the Zarek Besh were introduced and how it goes down is that the Hutts attacked Darth Vader's flagship Executor. Now, this is a big deal, and this seemed to be something that pissed off Emperor Palpatine dramatically. And so the Crimson Dawn went to the Zarek Besh and said, dudes, Palpatine is pissed. The Hutts attacked Executor, and you can gain favor with him. You can sort of be the apple of his eye if you go and fight in the Syndicate War and sort of take it to the Hutts. So the Zarek Besh went, and they fought in the Syndicate War. They fought against the Hutts, and they fought against the Black Suns, and they fought against a lot of people in an effort to win over Palpatine. Unfortunately, it turned out that the Crimson Dawn were just spewing nonsense. It was a rumor to stir the pot, and Palpatine wasn't so pissed off about the Hutts attacking Executor in his own weird maniacal mind. So that's where the Zarek Besh sort of enter our understanding of the different crime syndicate families. They'll be fleshed out here, obviously. We get to see them later on. Pretty darn cool, though, that they do have a history in the lore, and that's them, by the way, in the background. Sort of these like futuristic like technologically advanced faction that should be sweet to battle with. Now, this is obviously Kay, our main character, our heroine, our bounty hunter extraordinaire. And what this trailer does is really sets up her main motivation, her main plot goal in this game, which is to take down Sliro and rob his palace. Now, we knew in the initial story trailer, like the premiere trailer, that she was going to work with Jaden and she was going to try and win her freedom. Like, that was very important to her and something that was going to be a big deal in the game. This guy here is a frenemy, right? She's worked with him. She doesn't know that she can trust him fully, but he is someone that has featured in the initial trailer, and he's been there before, and he will obviously be a big part of this game and of Kay's journey. He is partnered with ND5, who is our good old cloak boy, droid boy, who we'll get to see heavily and who actually features in the main art for the game. So I think he's going to play a big part. But we now know that it's not just winning freedom, not just trying to escape her past. There is a very specific thing going on, and it is trying to rob Sliro and his palace, and that is what is being set up here and gives us sort of the main motivation for the game. Another great look at the Zarek Besh here, holding down the fort and probably holding down the Trailblazer, which is going to be the ship that Kay steals and may even be the beginning, the inception of her beef with Sliro. We'll see that later on in the trailer as well. But now we get to talk a little bit about the other faction that is in this game and a little bit about some of the other characters. Now, let's rewind a minute and talk about Vale. So Vale is a bounty hunter created for this game, and she is supposedly like a one-for-one match for Kayvas. So she can smuggle, she can fight, she can pilot ships, she can do it all. She's got her feet in all the different syndicates, she's dipped her toes in all those waters, and she is like Sliro's like ace in the hole to try and take down Kay and keep his palace and his organization alive. I got some more thoughts about Vale and what's going on her head here and what that could lead to in the plot, but we'll talk about those later on in the trailer. In the meantime, here is our boy ND5, a good friend and a cloak boy. Freaking, I don't know, he very much reminds me of a Fallout companion character. We'll have to see how that actually takes shape. Here is the Palace of Sliro, and it's interesting because this could be a scene from the end of the game. Like, this could be your final mission, robbing the palace, or, and what I would guess, is that this is quite possibly a mid-game plot switch-up. You know how, like, a lot of games will have one main plot point, one main focus, and then, boom, they swap it and give you the twist, like, midway through, and it's like, oh gosh, who you thought you were battling all along isn't who you were battling. And based on some of the lines in this trailer where they talk about Kay is in deeper than we know and Vale has a lot more going on to her story, my guess is that it's going to start out as robbing Sliro's palace is the end goal, but then you do that and there's like a bigger bad or more going on, or maybe the syndicate families fight together to take down the Zarek Besh or someone even bigger. Because we do see Han Solo here. We know this is Han Solo because this does take place between episode 5 and 6, and that is Carbon Free's Solo. Pretty cool that this game is introducing new characters, bringing back familiar faces, and introducing us to alternative sides to stories we're familiar with. I think one of the coolest things this game does, and I've seen in this trailer today, is that it's integrating elements from different eras out of their traditional era, right? Like, we're seeing Canto Bight, and we will later see another planet that are from the sequel trilogy, but now we're seeing them in the context of the original trilogy, which I personally just think is really darn nifty. Han is saying, help me! And maybe he has a little bit of a wink for Kayvas because he's that kind of a dude with his smolder. Very lifelike planets here. A little shot of Tatooine, and it's nice that we have some new planets and some old planets, and I don't know if there's going to be any, like, created planets in this game, but what I do mean by new is ones that aren't typically featured. Like, as we know, every game has to have Tatooine. Every Star Wars everything has to have a desert planet, so here it is, ta-da! But we also get Canto Bight. We're going to see Kijimi later, which is a very different looking planet, and I like that they're giving shine to things besides Hoth, Dagobah, Bespin, and Tatooine. This is interesting here because this is the crime syndicate family that Massive and Ubisoft made themselves. This is the Ashiga clan, and they clearly are very inspired by Japanese samurai, based on their headdress, and I think based on sort of their armored up look. Now, they do seem to have some like piping going into their face. I don't know if that's oxygen. I don't know if that's some sort of strange fluid. They are very puke green underneath the helmet. I'll be curious to see what their alien identity is, but I do like the look, and I like that we're sort of mixing and matching some cool stuff that Ubisoft has tried to generate themselves along with a lot of established lore, so the game feels very grounded but also fresh. And I think the gameplay has a chance to be really fresh, specifically with their faction system and specifically with their supposed ability to gain reputation, lose reputation, and have a lot of impact based on your decisions and how that influences your standing with the different families. Here's a sequence right here that I hope is not super scripted. This is Kay going in to try to talk to the Pikes, and they're like, dude, you have no reputation, get out of here. They toss her out, and then she goes to meet Big Daddy. But let's pause. Factions are something that Ubisoft is no stranger to, and they've done it time and time again in Far Cry. And I feel like in Far Cry, the factions don't matter as much as Ubisoft always says they do. They try to spin this narrative that you get to align with the factions you want and, work together to take down the bad guy and, you could piss them off or you could not. But it really feels a lot more binary than that. It's not very dynamic, and it's like either you're with these guys or you're not. We have seen in gameplay that there is like reputation gained, reputation lost. We have seen in gameplay that, and I'm referencing the 10-minute video that came out last year, we have seen that like, okay, if you say the wrong thing to an Imperial, they could put out a wanted bulletin for you and you can be hunted and have to escape the planet. So I'm hoping that there's more of a dynamic nature in this game than what Ubisoft has done with factions before. Because like, listen to this. This is from Far Cry 6's overview trailer, and it sounds very similar.
Where Danny will encounter key groups of locals and become entwined in their own unique narratives. Danny must gain the trust of each of these groups to resist Castillo's tightening grip on Yara.
But my honest hope here is twofold. One, my hope is that because Ubisoft is getting the Star Wars name, because it's a lot of money, and because they know it could sell like gangbusters, they're going to put an insane amount of effort to make this a very dynamic, interesting game. And I think this trailer helps indicate they're going that direction because it's very true to the gameplay. And it's something that makes me trust this trailer and every element we see of it, because the trailer is true to the 10-minute gameplay walkthrough. And what I mean by that is elements that we see in this trailer that's obviously cutscenes are also shown off in gameplay, meaning this isn't just an imagination exercise, right? One of the worries when you get a story trailer is like, is this really going to be how the video game plays, or is this just BS that they're feeding me to try to make the game look bigger and better than ever before? I think based on what you'll see here of Nyx, our partner character, our little creature sidekick working with us, and the grappling hook, and sort of the way the bike and the ships work, that this is very true to gameplay, and we can trust this trailer for being a good representation of the game. The Gamorrean guards here are saying, like, you stand before Jabba. Nyx is like, dear God, he's huge. We've got Han in the carbon freeze in the back of the room. We've got the outline of Bib Fortuna here. We've got other familiar creatures and faces, and we've got a Rancor pit beneath us. But Jabba, I think, is going to be heavily featured in this game, and I'm really excited about it. I think working with Jabba or against him will be awesome. The Hutts are the clan that I want to most ingratiate myself with and then maybe betray. I think just the fact that, there's so much connection to the movies and so much connection to the bounty hunter lore is very interesting here. And it kind of takes us to what I want to talk about with Vale, sort of our opponent bounty hunter, because they could have used Vale. They could have used Boba for Vale. They could have used a different bounty hunter, right? Bosk for Vale, but they're using a Ubisoft-generated character. And it makes me wonder if they're going to, in fact, have Vale become a good guy. I'll touch on that more in a second, but here's what I'm talking about. The story trailer is very true to gameplay. We see Nyx doing a lot of the stuff that Nyx does in the 10-minute gameplay demonstration. Nyx goes and grabs guns. Nyx bites people's hands. Nyx is a valuable sidekick to K-Vess and helps out and is a gameplay mechanic. We also know that the bike is a gameplay mechanic. We also know that escape is a gameplay mechanic. I do wonder if there's gonna be like some parkour here, because like, look how she slides down this roof. It almost looks like she's ready to go into a wall run right there. I don't know that she will, but hey, Ubisoft with their Assassin's Creed and Far Cry have done plenty of parkour and first person and third person movement, so I do hope that is a factor here. I think this game is going to be very dynamic in that we're seeing sort of a heavy story emphasis. We've got ship combat and ship flight, seamless world, right? Bike escapes. We've got close quarters, melee combat. We've got a lot of gunplay. We've got stealth. I think this game is going to be just maybe one of the best Star Wars games ever made. It's very cool that Ubisoft gets to put their spin on it, especially on the coattails of Respawn doing such a good job with the Jedi series. Like, they did an open world that didn't feel gimmicky and didn't feel lame, still emphasized story, and still felt like a great single-player campaign while being big, bold, and very Star Wars. Can Massive and Ubisoft do the same? I'm skeptical because of their work in Far Cry, but I love seeing things like these characters. All right, we got ND5 here, who is my cloak boy. I like him a lot. He seems like he might be your first and or main sidekick. That trench coat dude, he's just giving. I like it a lot. And then we've got a Chadra fan here, who is a rat person, a lesser used Star Wars alien faction, a little tiny guy that can help us out. And Kay talks about assembling the right crew to rob Sliro, and that's where we see ND5, we see this Chadra fan, and we're going to see a nice Rodian here ripping a freaking C-3PO type droid from his brain. Now you'll notice there's an interesting overlap here of eras, because we've got the Rodian, we're in the episode 5-6 time frame, but we've got a battle droid back here from the clone era. So I think this game is going to do a really nice job of integrating eras out of their timeline expectation, and I think that'll be really fun for us to see. We do get to see Kay on her ship and how she steals the ship. Again, this is the Trailblazer, and it's clearly coming from Sliro and the Zarek Besh. It seems like she steals this. I don't know if it's from Kijimi or if it's from Canto Bight. We're gonna get some shots of the ship here, and then we're going to get some shots of Sliro, and eventually we'll get Kijimi. Let's see. Let me zoom to Kijimi before we talk about what Vale's got going on her ear there. But I do think maybe stealing the ship happens early in the game, and it is something that factors heavily into the gameplay, the story, and quite possibly is the reason that Sliro even has you on his radar in the first place. So there we go. This is Kijimi, another planet from the sequel trilogy, a planet that I don't think met a very good fate, no spoilers intended, but we get to see it in a different era and from a different lens as Kay. I think that's Zarek Besh she's fighting there, although that's not, but back there, I don't know. I don't know who this could be. It looks like Zarek Besh given sort of like the yellow visor back there, but I'm not 100% sure. Speaking of visors, though, ear visors, let's go to this Bluetooth, that sharing a Bluetooth. This looks very reminiscent of the technology that Lobot had on his brain, and eventually he succumbed to it being able to sort of overtake him. His mind was lost, his implants took over, and he did work with Lando on the Millennium Falcon doing different criminal jobs. So he is an outlaw, definitely, and Val could have got technology like he has very easily. Now, this is where I speculate the story has a bit of a corny twist to it, and maybe they'll do it well, but given that they're emphasizing that Vale is like the one-to-one counterpart with Kay, right? You know, she's smart, she's a smuggler, she's a pilot, she's a fighter, and given that Ubisoft did not use a more familiar face to be your adversary, right? They could have used Boba, they could have used IG-88, they could have used Bosk. They did not. They bring in Vale, and I do wonder if you're going to either utilize her implant or get rid of her implant and like she's going to turn to the good side and will join your squad, because doesn't that just sound like something that would happen in a video game? Doesn't it just sound like, hey, this new character we made is eventually going to join your side, team up with Kay, they'll rule the galaxy or at least escape, and we'll add to your crew of ND5, the Chadra fan, the Rodian, and her, which, that's my prediction. I think she's going to turn good, even though she's fighting ND5 here and seems honestly kind of weak. She does say that there's more to Kay than Sliro knows, and I think there's more to both characters, and so they might have some dynamic banter that starts off as like a hate thing and eventually evolves into a, I don't want to say love, but you know what I mean, like a friendship type thing. Great bike scenes here. It's a water bike and a ground bike, which I love. This creature has me a little interested. Are we going to get the Far Cry crafting body parts system? Why is Kay doing battle with a rando creature here. Now, we have seen a lot of great examples of boss battles, and that's another reason I think this game is going to evolve beyond the typical Ubisoft formula, because they don't really have boss battles. Assassin's Creed bosses and Far Cry bosses are like, we'll throw 30 guys at you. Not really a boss battle in the traditional sense, but we've seen a Rancor, we've seen an AT-AT, we're going to see a Crate Dragon, and a lot of really cool big monsters that do seem to be hopefully not super scripted boss battles. But is she going to be able to bust off this guy's skull and smuggle it? Like, are you going to have craftable parts that you can also smuggle and sell? Are we going to have the, the little interstitial animation where she cuts up the body and takes the parts? It's a Ubisoft game. It's an open world game. Me no, but I'm highly curious. Can Ubisoft break the mold of, towers and crafting? We'll have to wait and see. Some droids. We got Kajimi again in the snow. A lot of planet diversity. The Trailblazer going after, or getting away rather, from some ties. The grapple hook. Okay, this is a great sequence here because it does show that this trailer is super trustworthy. This is obviously not a UI-based, this is not gameplay, right? This is not the perspective. This is not anything that we would see in the game, but it does seem like a very legit shot. Like, the lighting is great, but you could easily see how you're supposed to jump across to this open vent here. And again, we've seen her use the grappling hook in the gameplay demonstration, so it tells me that this game is going to be like this trailer. There's so many elements here that are true to what we've already seen as Nyx and Kay fall into a freaking Sarlacc pit, and then we get a Death Trooper. All right, this is where it just gets bananas to me. We've got a lot of Rogue One influences. We've got a lot of Return of the Jedi influences. We've got different eras merging together. And now we get to see Kay interact with a very fan favorite element of Star Wars. And I think the balance between integrating stuff we know and love and new stuff and playing to fan service, but also telling its own tale, that balance is so crucial. Can Ubisoft and Massive strike a great balance between playing to their fan base, playing to the Star Wars already existing lore, and developing something new, original, and awesome? I hope they can. And maybe more than the faction system, maybe more than if Vale becomes a good guy or not, maybe their ability to balance this teetering line of, Star Wars as it exists and Star Wars as it can be new is going to be very important. I think the Jedi games from Respawn do a great job of paying homage to Star Wars and feeling like Star Wars while also being distinctly their own thing. And I hope Outlaws can do that. I also want to know if the Sarlacc pit is a boss. Is it a scripted sequence? Can you just fall in it randomly? Another reason I'm excited to go duke it out with Jabba. Will he throw me in here? I sure hope so. We do get to see a Death Trooper for a quick second. These guys are fierce and very nice. We also get to see another what I believe will be a boss battle, just because we've seen this sort of boss battle in a previous trailer. I think that's kind of how it will go. And then this is one of the most fun shots of the trailer to me. Do you know what these little spider robots are? I think they could be from the B'omarr Order. Now, if you don't know what that is, it was shown off in Jabba's palace as basically these monks that put their brains in a vat and then sealed it off, attached to a spider robot, and can move around via a droid spider. So the B'omarr Order, they got rid of all physical sensation as part of their religious beliefs, and they move around as spider bots with brains hanging from sacks. Super sick in both, the realistic, ew, that's gross, sick, and sick, wow, very cool. Now, these guys don't have brain sacks hanging down, and they're very small, but I do wonder if these are baby B'omarr Orders, if they're drones of the B'omarr Order, if they're little minions of the B'omarr Order. It does seem like this could be in the halls of Jabba's palace. And again, I love the exploration of deep into the Star Wars lore. Give us some really cool stuff that is not just Boba, Bossk, Han. They're going to have some of that, but I like that they're digging deeper and that they're trusting us we're going to think this stuff is cool, because I freaking think these spider guys are cool. Here's our Crate Dragon. Those of you who have seen The Mandalorian know what this is. Big boy dragon, big nasty dragon. This seems like it could be a boss battle. It also seems like it could be a scripted sequence. Now, I hope that this is a playable sequence. We have seen a lot of bike and ship action, so I hope that this is something that you get to actually drive around, and maybe they're popping out and maybe you have to dodge them, avoid them. I hope that it's not just a, what do you call that, a quick time event, and I hope that it's not just a cutscene. But I could see it being a cutscene where we just see, oh gosh, she's escaping, and then a great dragon comes and it's scary and she gets away because you know what I mean? Like, I hope it's more than that, but TBD. I think the good news is we get a lot of huge creatures here. We have very up close and personal encounters punching people in the face, and then we also have very dynamic big encounters. We see Kay battling on her bike. We see Kay battling just as she stealths around. We see her using Nyx. We see her not using Nyx. We see her fighting off again against some rando creature out here that, like, is this for harvesting? Is this just combat? How is that all going to develop and evolve? There's obviously tons of Crime Syndicate enemies, tons of droids, and ship combat, which is seamlessly integrated into this world as we've seen previously. I think the game is going to blow us away because of its seamless nature, and it gives me hope that Ubisoft will be able to rely more on story beats and dynamic directed sequences rather than just go find the tower. Can they balance Star Wars lore with their own creation? Can they introduce meaningful dialogue decisions where the factions and your reputation does have an impact? And can they make it feel like a true campaign that is directed by a great lead designer as well as being an open game? Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor set the template for them. That's the blueprint. Can they follow it but still make it their own? August 30th, we'll find out. Actually, August 27th, because you can get 3-day early access if you buy an expensive version. I will be doing that. I'm very hopeful and positive and upbeat on this game. And because, you know, I've been so into Star Wars Unlimited lately, I'm just jazzed for anything Star Wars. And this channel is going to be mostly Star Wars Marvel for right now because of my love for Marvel Snap and my love for Star Wars Unlimited. And I'm just really excited and eager to see what the heck they do with the upcoming games. I think there's a lot that can be still pulled from the Star Wars universe. It's been explored, but not a ton, or not as much as it could be. And I do feel like the diversity and the variety that they've shown off thus far bodes super well for this game and what Ubisoft can and will do with it. So as soon as more information drops, I will have it for you. I will cover it for you. And also, if I have any other thoughts on this, I'll let you know. If there's anything that you think I missed or want me to go deeper into, let me know in the comments down below. It's so good to be back. I hope some of you remember me from long ago. I hope some of you are new and excited for my coverage of this game and beyond. But until next time, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I am so freaking pumped to say this, but until next time, guys and girls, drink some hot chocolate, and we will see you all later.